we're going to continue from the last video where we created the surface, plywood surface, and we're going to be talking about how to create openings in the surface. So for instance, if you had like a shelf in this that you needed to pass through, or if you had, for instance, on your studs here, you had like an opening that needed to be cut through all the studs. It's pretty simple, and we're going to go through that pretty quickly. So let's get started. So the first thing we're going to do here is we're going to start a new family, and we're just going to create basically what we created for this one, which was let's find save project, which is basically just a generic model, face-based, because you never know what surface you're going to be creating this opening on. It could be on the base plate here. You could be creating like pre-openings for conduits or piping. You could be creating random openings on the face here. So it's just easier to do it as a face-based. So here's a face-based family. We're just going to open that. So the first thing we're going to do before we do anything is we're going to do a save as. I'm just going to save this as we'll do that afterwards. So we're going to actually create a reference plane. So we're going to want to control the way the opening works. So we're just going to do a random square opening for now. So I'm just going to add the parameters in real quick. Okay, so all I did so far is I created equality constraints based on the center point, and then I created 4 more reference planes for left, right, top, bottom. You can name them if you want. This is going to be a quick one, so we're not going to go through all that. And then I just created 2 parameters, one for length and one for width, and then created made them 4 inches each. So we're going to do the same thing for the front. We're going to create 2 more reference planes here. So again, I did the same thing. The only difference is I only use the reference plane that's prefabricated in this, so the reference level, and then I created a secondary reference plane for the depth, and then I made it 1 foot. So that should be all the reference planes that you need for this project in specific. So we're going to go back to the reference level here, and we're going to create a void. So there's a lot of ways you can do this opening. The way I like to do it is I like to have it so that way I can pick the amount of surfaces that I want to penetrate through. You can have it so that way it auto penetrates, which I'll go over in this video as well. So we're just going to start with Floyd Extrusion. We're going to create an opening here. We're going to lock it to these. Oops. Always make sure you lock your geometry. Hit OK. And then we're going to go back to the front, and then we're going to do the same thing here. We're going to take this and lock it to here, and then we're going to make sure that the bottom here is also aligned. Make sure you pick the reference plane and not that grid line. Sometimes it gets funky if you pick the grid line. Okay, and then we're going to go into 3D and take a look at what we got. So all we have is a void extrusion, nothing crazy, and that's really all you need for this. The 2 really important things that you need to make sure that you do here, though, is if you go to your properties, make sure that you do cut with voids when loaded, and you do shared. This just lets you pass information, and this one makes it so that way it can cut through multiple objects. So right now it's just family 4. That's fine. We're just going to load this into our project. Stud wall layout, that's fine. Hit OK. And then we're going to just hit escape a couple times, and we're going to go to our 3D view, and this is what we're going to have here. Now it's pretty simple to use, so we're just going to go to the architecture tab, component, because it's just a generic component. we're going to place it on a face. Now you'll notice right here that it's not going to cut anything, and that's okay because we don't actually want it to pre-cut anything. We want it to cut things when we tell it to cut things. So we're going to go to Modify tab. We're going to go to the Geometry panel, and we're going to select Cut. We're going to make sure that multiple cut is selected, so that way this can cut through multiple items. And then we're going to basically select, you're going to follow these directions down here. So the first one says first pick select elements to be cut or host wall. So we're just going to pick this, for instance, what we want to be cut, and then we're going to select this item. Then you notice it'll cut it. Pretty simple, right? Now we're going to do the same thing again, except this time we're going to pick cut again. Make sure multiple cuts also selected. Select the stud, and then select the void. There you go. Pretty simple. Now you would never probably really have a situation like this, but you might. You never know. Let's say, for instance, you might need an opening through all of these studs. So we can go through and we can go to architecture again, component, and because it's face-based, it'll snap to anything. So the way that you can tell if it's snapping to it properly is it'll highlight that surface blue. So we'll pick this one here, and you know what, we'll add another type. So we'll go edit type, we'll duplicate, that's fine, and we'll make a type and we'll call it 2 inch by 2 inch opening. Okay, and then we'll just go here and we'll just make it 2 inches. So you can do these as instance parameters if you want, or as type parameters. It really doesn't matter. Then hit apply, and then now we're going to make sure that this is the right type, so it's not. We're going to make sure that we have 2 by 2 opening, and then we're going to change this again to 2 inches. This is why having type properties might be better. Depends on what you're trying to do. Okay, I'm going to move this around so it's more center. And then we're going to do the same thing. We're going to go to modify. We're going to go to cut, select the stud, select the opening. Now you might want this to be longer, so let's say your wall is, well, we know how long our wall is. Our wall is 8 feet. So that's 8 feet. We're just going to use the align here, just so that way we can have these faces aligned from one side to the other. Might not work because it's a void. Yeah, it doesn't work. That's okay. We'll just do what we have right now. So we're gonna, a little too far. So I'm just gonna change this back to 8 feet. You would be able to control this in an elevation view, which I'll show you in a minute. But for now, we're just gonna make sure that we do these cuts. So we're gonna go to modify again. We're gonna go to cut. We're gonna select the stud. Select this again, and unfortunately you have to keep going back to here and keep selecting the void. Now the one thing that's kind of nice is you can skip studs if you want. So like let's say there was an opening here, like a window or something, and you didn't want these openings through the window. You could just select cut, and then go to cut, hit this little drop down, go uncut, select this, and then it'll give you the option to uncut it. So we're going to go back quick, and then we're going to go to here. And the one thing that's kind of cool about this is you can actually move it wherever you want. Move it up, and it'll follow that geometry that you've set. So it makes it pretty intuitive. If you realize that, you know, actually I want to run my conduits down through here, if I can get it through there. Oops, it's not, things don't move very easily in 3D view. I'm going to go to here, move it down. Hopefully that'll work. It won't work. The only way to efficiently do this would be, so we'll just go to an elevation view, just so it's more efficient here. So it'll give you the option to select it, move it down. It's only pullable from one side, which is okay. Oh, that's right, forgot, it's always going to want to reference this face, so it might be it might be beneficial to maybe set up in certain cases it might be better to set this up as this reference plane here is your middle, and then have you know, a control on each side, so you can have like one is depth forward and one is depth back or something like that. It really depends on what you want to do, because if you look at the way that this is designed right now, you can't really move it this way. You'd have to make sure that, or just make sure that when you're doing it that you're picking the right face, like picking this side instead of picking a random stud. So let's see if we can fix that here. We'll just select this, we'll pick new, we can probably pick a new face. Yeah, so you could just pick a new face instead. So we'll just drag this back so it's here, and again, this is flexible, right? Like, or not flexible, it's attachable. You could attach it to this if you wanted to, so that way it's always following, right? So that's the basics of using this opening tool. I'm going to do another video where I show how you can use these with model elements. So like I said before, with a shelf, if you want to add a shelf with an opening on it, and you just wanted to put the shelf in, and then just say cut elements that are in the way of the shelf, and it'll give you like a tolerance around. So like, let's say you need like 10 millimeters around the whole opening, or around the whole shelf as an opening. You can set it up that way too. So I hope you enjoyed this video. Like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.